Vanessa, thank you so much again for coming on to the podcast. It's a pleasure to speak to you and to see you. For anyone that doesn't know, you kindly came on to the podcast last year for season 2. For anyone looking it up, it's episode 41. But you came on the 17th of June. I looked it up, and your episode actually came out on the 7th of August. But we have kept in touch since then with various things. But what I want to talk about is your new venture, Trust in Rock. Previously, we spoke about your history. We spoke a lot about Headbangers Ball, so we've already covered all of that. But since the podcast came out, you have been extremely busy with a new project that is fully up and running. It's exciting. It's looking good just now. It's going to look even better in the future as it goes on. So we want to talk about all things Trust in Rock, which is your new channel, which you launched. It's on YouTube for anyone to subscribe to follow. And it's similar to Headbangers Ball, similar format. You're talking to bands and musicians, old and new, finding out everything about their thoughts on all things music and their songwriting and everything that's coming out. But before we get started though, how are you actually doing?
Well, I'm doing okay, thank you, Ian. And for anybody that doesn't know, you have been instrumental in the launch of the Trust in Rock channel. You've been a great support to me, a great encouragement, which I'm so grateful for, because when I started, I wasn't 100% sure that I had a space still in the rock firmament, so to speak. But yourself and my dear friend and producer Sarah Harding, who you've also interviewed, ex of MTV, and my husband Nick, and some other people have really encouraged me and supported me, and it's thanks to them and you that I started Trust in Rock, and yeah, it's going great.
Yeah, we're going to talk about all things Trust in Rock, but I had a look back through our conversation because we've got a group chat, yourself, Sarah, Nick's on there, and Trust in Rock, it's the name of the channel. Do you remember how many name suggestions were put forward before we clicked on Trust in Rock?
Oh, I dread to think. There was a fair few, wasn't there? And we went back and forth, but it was a creative process, and I think it was healthy that we had 4 kind of creative minds looking at it. I'm guessing you've added them up.
There was 30 suggestions put forward, and suggestion 29 was Rock Drop, suggestion 30 was Trust in Rock, which were the 2 names that you eventually settled on.
Yeah.
But it was definitely a work in progress, but it did come together very quickly. You originally spoke to myself about the idea on the 8th of August, so it was the day after your podcast episode had came out, and the first episode came out on the 31st of October, so you're only talking a matter of months.
Yeah, I think it was also kind of spurred on by the fact that the TV show that I was hosting for Stax, the streaming service in Scandinavia, that I did 8 episodes for, Stax unfortunately went out of business, so the show no longer continued, and I think that was the extra kind of encouragement to make me think, actually, I could do this on my own, under my own, steam, and my own terms of engagement. And yes, it did come together very quickly, and I called it Trust in Rock because I have been watching on YouTube a lot of live streams of different birds' nests. So I've been watching a bald eagle nest in California and an osprey nest in Florida. And when you watch nature live, I developed quite a lot of anxiety about things I was seeing. For instance, the female eagle flew away and left 3 eggs unprotected. And I was on the chat going, oh my God, she's gone, what's happening? And so many people came back and said, trust in nature. And I thought that's such an important and profound thought, because nature does know best. And I kind of thought, well, we can trust in rock as well, because rock has always been there for us. and it will always have answers for us in our hours of need, whether it's a song that lifts us up or a community member that says something that helps us or introduces us to a fantastic new band. So that's how I came up with the name. And it had to be something fairly short and snappy to, fit around all of the social media as well. So yeah, that's what we called it. Yeah. And Rock Drop is the name of the show where I do the in-depth interview. And of course, my first guest was the wonderful Mr. Jerry Cantrell of Alice in Chains.
Yeah, well, I've got so many questions that's going to take you through the whole process. But starting at the beginning then, so see, having been away from the music presenting scene for so long, obviously yourself and Nick worked together, you've achieved huge success with your other career. So what was it that made you want to return to the music scene, and why now?
It was really that Stax got in touch with me and said, would you like to host a show? And, well, I was utterly delighted that they'd even thought of me. And I immediately got on the phone to Sarah, my dear friend and ex-MTV producer, and I said, Sarah, do you think I can do this? But I can only do it if you help me, because I'd been away from the scene for a long time, and she was still in the scene. She had all of the contacts still. She's got the most amazing black book of artists and managers and promoters, etc. And I said, I want to do it, but I can only do it if you want to help me. And she absolutely jumped at the chance, and she shouted, the band are back together. Bless her. So yeah, it all just came together. And then obviously I'd been in conversation with you as well, because I really liked what you'd done with your own podcast, and it was something that I felt that I wanted to replicate, and I thought you would be another good creative mind and source of knowledge, which you have been, to have in the little team behind it. So yes, it's just a very grassroots thing for, I guess, friends, just doing it and trying to build it up. So yeah, it was really that Stax came to me and said, Vanessa, people want to see you again, which I did find slightly hard to believe at first, but the success and the interest in Trust in Rock has proved that to be correct, thankfully.
So see, had Stax TV not approached you, do you think the podcast would not be happening? Maybe
not. My husband Nick has always encouraged me to go back, and he said you are still relevant. You've got years of knowledge, experience, memories. You've met so many incredible people, some of whom are no longer, sadly no longer with us. And we need good rock interviews. That's never changed. So he was kind of encouraging me in the background, but very often I think, I'm a great believer in what I call the universe. Some people would call it God. Some people would call it a higher power, or something that's bigger than yourself, shall we say. And I've always believed that the universe will present the opportunity at the right time. And it all just seemed to come together. And maybe I couldn't have done it before, because I had other things that I was dealing with that would have really prevented me from doing it. So it kind of was just all the stars aligned. That's the best way I can describe it.
And obviously you had been removed from the presenting role for such a long time. Did you yourself have any doubt with your own ability when deciding to return to it? And if you did, how did you manage that? How did you overcome it?
Well, we have a YouTube channel for our other business. And I just looked today and we've got 1,400 videos on there. So I had carried on presenting, but in the property world. So, as I like to say, I went from rock and roll to bricks and mortar. So rather than interviewing, Alice Cooper, I ended up interviewing the property ombudsman and people like that. So it really was a very significant change. And at the end of the day, the skills are the same. You need to prepare, you need to do your research, and, you need to give the person, the guest, the chance to express themselves, give them space to talk, not keep, jumping in or butting in on them. And you need to be a good listener to be a good interviewer as well. So I kind of had those skills still in my back pocket. When I went to do a rock interview again, I was nervous, actually. I think, because it was going back into a different kind of arena. And as I mentioned, Jerry Cantrell was my first interview for Trust in Rock, although I'd done quite a few other interviews for Stax. But everybody that I've come across since my return, all of my guests have just been so wonderful and so supportive and so wanting to give their best interview. So I would say I'm back in the saddle now.
Yeah. When you were away from the music scene, did you continue to keep up to date with it, or was it just simply still continuing to follow your own bands that you like to listen to?
I would say pretty much the latter. I got into a very different arena, the property arena, and I built quite a substantial property portfolio, which is running a business and was demanding. And I kind of went into that different world. And I think if you're going to be successful at anything in life, you have to give 100%. You have to totally immerse yourself in it, not necessarily at the expense of other things. But I think I was just so, focused on what I was doing. Because I wanted to build a business with my husband where we could work together and we could have a certain lifestyle where we could go off in our motorhome and go on adventures and go exploring Scotland and wonderful places like that. So I was very driven and I was very committed and I was very focused. So I did step away from the scene. But obviously I've got still friends in the music business and they were, keeping me up to speed with things. And now I've come back. I'm very quick to assimilate information and I've kind of got a lot more into it. Sarah's given me lots of hints and tips and guided me. And so have you, Ian. So, I think I'm, getting back up to speed, really.
Well, you've mentioned Sarah a few times and I would like to sort of speak about her for a wee bit. So I really think she's definitely a key component when it comes to putting Trust in Rock together, was having Sarah on board.
Well, I couldn't have done it without her.
I know that you'd previously worked with Sarah on MTV's Headbangers Ball. That might have actually been where you met.
Yep.
And I believe you stayed friends across the years, even although you were removed from that part of the business. But how important was it to have Sarah back on board? And what was her initial reaction when you told her that you were planning on returning? I know you mentioned it very briefly before, but how important was it to have Sarah on board with this?
Oh, it was absolutely vital. If she hadn't agreed to come back as my producer and support me in getting artists and helping me with all the research and the logistics of setting everything up, I wouldn't have done it. Sarah also introduced me to the Karma Sanctum Hotel, which is Iron Maiden's hotel in London. It's run by the most wonderful man named Mark Fuller, who's actually appeared on my channel, Trust in Rock. And Mark very kindly said we could use the Karma Sanctum as our studio. They've got an events room there, which we have access to anytime we want, provided it's not booked. And I think, Sarah brought that contact. She brought her black book of artists and managers, as I mentioned, but most of all, she brought her encouragement and her belief in me. And, that's helped me just so enormously. I just can't even begin to express it. So with her helping me, guiding me, supporting me, encouraging me, I've been able to come back. And, she's been right there every step of the way. And anybody who knows Sarah or who watches your interview with her will see what an incredibly bubbly and jolly and happy, she's somebody that always sees the bright side of life. And, she's always been there for me as a friend. And I hope I've been there for her as a friend as well. So it's a great pleasure and privilege to me to be able to be working with Sarah again, actually, in this format. So, yeah, she's absolutely, intrinsic to Trust in Rock.
I mean, I've only spoke with Sarah a few times, and of course I had her on the podcast, but she's got a good energy about her. And I mean, apart from the fact she's obviously extremely knowledgeable, she's got great ideas, it's more personality-wise, you come away from speaking with her feeling a bit better.
Oh, you do. She has a tremendous energy. She lights up a room. She's always at the centre of everything going on at any party. She's got a big crowd of followers and friends, and she's at the centre of a whole community of people that love rock music, and she works with Metal Talk as well. She's just a great champion of rock music and has been for decades, and everybody knows her. And she lights up a room, and you do feel better after you've spoken to her.
Here's a question for you. So you obviously done MTV's Headbangers Ball, and all these years later you're returning with Trust in Rock. How has the landscape changed? Because when you look at them side by side, it's the same thing. You're speaking to people, you're interviewing bands, musicians, but how has the landscape changed? And the first thing that came to my mind when asking you this question was two things. One is it must be a lot quicker than before. So, for example, you done a video for Trust in Rock back in December. Nickel McBrain from Iron Maiden announced pretty much out of the blue that he was stepping down from the drums. That's big news in the rock world. And within a few hours, you already had a video up to the public to watch regarding him. I don't think it would have been as quick as that back in the day. Another thing that I was probably thinking was that you are able to now get direct feedback from your fan base via the comment section, whether it be YouTube or Facebook or that. Would you agree that that's probably the two main things with regard to how the landscape has changed between Headbangers Ball back in the day and Trust in Rock nowadays?
Well, definitely, you've really nailed it there. We only even had email towards the very, very end of my time at MTV. Everything was done by letter and fax. And I used to come in of a morning and there would be a pile of letters from viewers on my desk, which I went through and, got their feedback that way. But, some of those letters could have taken 2 or 3 weeks to get to me because they came from places all over Europe. Now, the feedback is instantaneous. And I think, the social web has had a massive and positive impact on the music industry, because now bands can build a following themselves at very little expense, and they can basically show that they've got a large audience, and that can actually help them to get a record deal on their terms, rather than in the old days when it was really record company executives who decided who we were going to be exposed to. So, many artists who are absolutely brilliant never see the light of day because for one reason or another, they didn't get a record deal. Now, artists can build a following through social media, and they can, do their music much more on their terms. And I do think that's very, very healthy.
Yeah, I mean, I've spoke with a lot of people regarding this, and some of them say it's a double-edged sword, that certainly, you can discover bands from all across the world from the comfort of your couch or your bedroom, whereas before you would never have known these bands existed unless you went to that part of the world. But at the same time, there's so much choice now. How do they rise to the top? But I sometimes think if you're good enough, people will hear. That if the music is good enough, then they will hear it. But it's the same with recording. Years ago you needed to go into a recording studio, a professional recording studio, to record your music. It's amazing now what you can do. For under £1,000, you can have a full setup in your spare bedroom, and you can be creating stuff that's just as professional, sometimes even better sounding than some of the professional bands out there. But it's interesting, but I've had a lot of people, personal friends of mine, that obviously follow the Trust in Rock channel, and they're absolutely delighted when it's something as simple as you put up a video, they watch it, they enjoy it, they leave a comment, and you simply reply. And they've actually messaged me back, "Oh, Vanessa just replied to me." And it sounds silly, but they watched you all those years ago, and you were still a face on the television. It was almost like untouchable, out of reach. And it's just that little bit of, interaction that helps people. People love it, people enjoy it, and it's great that you do that, because I see that you reply to every comment, every person that takes the time to watch a video, to leave a comment, and they're delighted when you simply like it and reply back. And it only takes 2 seconds, but there's a personal touch there that wasn't there back in the old days because it wasn't possible.
No, you're so right. And, I'm so grateful to everybody that takes the time to comment, and I respect that people have busy lives and they've taken the time to watch my content and then put a comment, and I'm so grateful that they do. I really appreciate it, and I love being able to answer them. And some people say, "Is that really you, Vanessa?" Yeah, it's little old me. Nobody else is running my channel, just literally me. So yes, it is my desire to be able to answer every question. The channel is still fairly small at the moment. When you get up into the tens of thousands or millions, I've seen videos with 50,000 comments, it's going to be harder, but I don't have that problem right now. And no matter how big my channel gets, I'm always going to be grateful for, every single comment I get. And I value all feedback, constructive criticism or critical thinking ideas. I really appreciate that, and I take it on board. So if anybody has any feedback, they should definitely leave it. I mean, one thing I'm not sure about is how long to make the interviews, because everybody tells me that people have got a very small attention span. I can see that can be the case, but I think the subject matter that I deal with, it needs a deeper dive. It needs to breathe. It needs a longer interview. I don't think you can really get an in-depth interview in something that's like 5 minutes long. So I've been opting to make my interviews about 20 to 25 minutes. And I believe that people, they might watch 5 minutes of it and then press pause and go and do something else. The thing is, they can consume it in the way that suits them. So yeah, I'm going to stick to what I believe is a good thing in this very this age of lack of alleged attention span and so quick moving and I'm going to stick to what I believe in, that there are people out there who appreciate an in-depth interview, and that's what I'm going to deliver.
Yeah, I mean, the feedback that I've had even for my own channel is if the video is worth watching, if what we're discussing is interesting, they will watch it start to finish, whether it's 20 minutes, whether it's an hour. So it's good. It's good to know. But you'd mentioned Jerry Cantrell before, and this will maybe apply to him along with anyone else. But there's a lot of bands and musicians that you interviewed back in Headbangers Ball days, and you've got to know them over time. And remarkably, they're still here today, creating good music. It's just as relevant, and they're just as active today as they were 30 years ago. So I was going to say, why do you think that is? And do you think they themselves are surprised, had you said to them 30 years ago, we will still be talking 30 years' time, 2025, we will still be talking about your new music that you're releasing?
I think anybody would be surprised to believe that they could have a career of 30 odd years in a creative endeavour. So I would hazard a guess that people like Jerry are more relevant now than ever. And the reason I say that is because he has such a massive archive of truly exceptional songs, but also that Jerry as an individual has grown. And I read a lot between the lines with people I talk to in everyday life. And Jerry is somebody that I believe has come through some very, very challenging times. I mean, not least the death of his mum, and the death of Lane Staley. He talks a lot about, loss. And he's also had personal demons that he has overcome. And the Jerry that I spoke to was just what I would consider to be a lovely human being. He remembered the very first time we ever met, which I'd forgotten. And he was most charming and most gracious. And I didn't even have my channel set up when I interviewed him, and he still came and talked to me. And that meant so much. So, these people are a repository of life experiences which they're expressing through music. And I think that, their music becomes even more important because it's born out of personal growth. And personal growth can be very painful, or it can be forced via very painful and challenging situations. So I have nothing but respect for the artists that, are still going strong and still putting their 100% into everything, which people like Jerry, definitely do. He's still 100% into music. He still cares about the fans. It was just such a great start to my channel to have somebody of his caliber, kick it off for me.
I think one of the things as well, when I think about the bands that my dad loved, all great bands, the classic bands, the Beatles, the Doors, the Who, but they didn't have a long career when you compare it to bands later on. So bands that I grew up with, that I love, they're still on the go. And my daughter, who's now heading towards 19, so feeling a bit old, but my daughter can get into the music that I listen to, but it's still on the go. Yep. It wasn't a 5 or 6 year period in my youth. And although the music still lasts, the band is long gone. These bands are still existing. And part of me thinks the only reason they exist is if they're putting out good music, they will continue. If the music dies away, then the fans will let them know.
Yep, I think you're right. And, I remember, Lemmy saying to me at the Motorhead 25th anniversary concert, he said, Vanessa, I've seen fans with their children and their grandchildren coming to our shows. And so, I mean, what isn't that just so wonderful? It's, joining up all the generations. And these bands that are still going, again, we have to, salute them, because being on the road is incredibly hard. And, the thought of going on stage every other night and having to put on a show, the thought of that actually fills me with dread. Because if you had an off day where you woke up and you just thought, I don't really feel up to it, that doesn't cut it. You have to go and give 100% every single night. So you have to be physically fit, you have to be mentally fit. It's extremely demanding, and you have to put on every show like it's your best ever show, and you have to give the same experience across the board. And that's, that is challenging. And these bands are where they are because they do that, and they still, have the fire in them and the belief, and, the commitment to do it.
Yeah, I remember James Hetfield from Metallica, he still says that in interviews, that he looks out to the crowd and there's 10-year-olds on the front barrier singing along to Master of Puppets, and he's like, you really like this? But, okay, maybe Stranger Things helped with that, but good music is good music, and it will last forever. And they're still passionate, all these bands that are still continuing after all these years. But here's a question as well for you. You've been out of the game for so long, you come back again. Have you heard any feedback from for example, Jerry Cantrell or other bands, has there been any feedback from the older bands when they heard that Vanessa Warwick was back on the scene? Because that must have been a wee pleasant surprise for them.
Yeah, I have had some lovely feedback, actually. I've had quite a few messages passed from me to me, some via Sarah, some via social media. And, you know, I've heard that the Korn guys knew I was back. They were really pleased. Pantera, Sepultura, Fear Factory, you know, lots of bands have kind of sent me messages of support, and also lots of record companies and managers actually have been in touch and said, so great to see you back. I've had quite a few magazines. I've done a lot of podcasts. I've just done one with Ghost Cult magazine, and that was an excellent interview as well. I didn't even know that Headbangers Ball Europe was so popular in America, but apparently it is. They all traded tapes, which you know, that was back in the days of VHS we're talking about. So yeah, it's just everybody, I think, has been really supportive, and Mark Adams of Blinding Talent has also really encouraged me and helped me, and I've kind of done a few bits and pieces with him. I'm hopefully, one of the things that we might do together is we might put on a showcase gig for new bands and film it. So there will be more things coming in the pipeline in 2025 as I develop the show. I really do need to get my subscriptions up and my views up to make it viable. So that's what I'm working on in the first instance.
Okay, and the channel at this stage, it's been up and running for approximately 3 months now. So it's early days. However, it is going very well. But is it shaping up the way you initially envisioned it to be over this short time, or would you say it's changed from the original idea that you had?
I think the original idea was to have an overarching brand, Trust in Rock, and then Rock Drop the interview, Rock Drop Metal Memory, Rock Drop a Quickie With, which is like a quick fire question round. And I have done all of those things, but I've done other things as well. I've made some news reports. I've done a few pieces to camera about my own thoughts on certain things. And I think it will just really, you know, take on a life of its own as it develops. It's largely subject to the guests that I can get on the channel. I do need big name guests to keep it going. So hopefully this year I'll get, you know, some more Jerry Cantrells. But, you know, I also want it to be a platform for new music as well. So I've got a few new bands coming through. I've done an interview with Andri, a female singer who I was very impressed with. And funnily enough, I've got an interview coming up later with a Scottish band, which you've interviewed on your channel as well, haven't you, Ian?
Yeah, I spoke with them 2 weeks ago. The episode's not came out. It'll probably come out next month. Super nice guys. And because obviously they're rock people, so, you know, when I listen to their music, I can say it sounds a bit like this, it sounds a bit like that. We had a lot to talk about. Yeah, no, they were really, well, again, they contacted me via social media, and they are called Broken Ravens, and I just love the fact that they're from the Outer Hebrides. Because, as you know, it's very remote, and it's amazing. They've been going a fair while, and they've had a very interesting do-it-yourself career, I guess you would call it. So I'm looking forward to talking to them. And, you know, I'll listen to things and it will immediately resonate with me, or maybe it won't. But in this case, I listened to it and I really, really liked it. And I want to give people people a platform and a chance as well. They deserve it. Now, not your last video, the video before it, 2 videos ago, you mentioned something on the video that I found quite interesting. and it was with regard to musicians opening up about their relationship with mental health. Now, it's such a big and important part of a conversation that I don't think it could have been discussed years ago, certainly not in the same way, but it's a really good thing for bands to talk about. But it's great that people are open to discussing it now. Is that an avenue that you're keen to explore further?
It is, and I do agree with you that it would have perhaps not have been possible 20 or 30 years ago, because for two reasons. First of all, mental health wasn't really discussed openly, and secondly, I hadn't had any kind of experience with it myself. And it's now on my radar because I have had experience of it, and unfortunately about 10 years ago a close member of my family committed suicide, and that sent severe shockwaves through my entire family. And my sister, it was her husband who took his own life. My sister developed very, very severe mental health issues, and still is very mentally incapacitated. And that was, an intro into this. And because I'd experienced it firsthand myself, and I also had some events in the last few years that caused me to become very anxious and worried, I felt that I had more of a connection to it, and I felt that I could introduce the topic in a respectful manner. And if people don't want to talk about it, that's absolutely 100% respected. I wouldn't ever force anybody, and I wouldn't force a line of questioning, but it's almost like I just see a little opening to bring it in. Or sometimes, particularly in when I interviewed Those Damn Crows, Lloyd and Shane, who I absolutely love, top guys, top band, they brought up the topic of the loss of their parent. Both of them had experienced the loss of a parent when they were relatively young. And that's a huge life event. And they had worked through their grief using music, which I thought was just a wonderful thing to be able to talk about, because it really can help bring solace, and it can make you feel that somebody else has been there. I think when you have a mental health issue, you feel that you're in a very dark hole on your own. And with these people talking about it and their music, it was almost like, somebody would come into the dark hole and sit with you and put their arms around you and say, yeah, I understand, this will pass. And I felt very honoured and privileged that they would open up and show such vulnerabilities, and that they felt that there was a comfortable space to do it. So, yeah, I think these are a good line of questioning to go forward.
Yeah. So Vanessa, we're obviously early in 2025. The channel has got so much more to bring to it. You've kind of mentioned it before. We're going to get some bigger names on. We'll maybe get a platform for some unsigned artists who deserve a little bit of a break, along with rock memories, quick fire rounds. We've got competitions. We've got all different things. Anybody that's wanting to check it out, they can subscribe on YouTube. They can follow you on social media, Trust in Rock. It's very easy to find. Obviously, if they watch the videos, leave a comment, let you know what they like, maybe what they don't like, what they would like to hear in the future. Yep. It's all interactive. It's all very good. But before we finish up, Vanessa, as always, I do like to ask some fun questions just to end things on a fun note. So I can't remember if I asked you this question before, so I'll ask it again. So back when you done Headbangers Ball, you seemed to interview every relevant band that was out at the time, but was there ever a band or musician that you just never got the opportunity to interview? Yeah,
I think you did ask it before, but I don't mind you asking it again. It was Debbie Harry of Blondie. I never got to talk to her. I probably, now I've grown older, I would have loved to interview some artists. I always loved Queen and Freddie Mercury, but I've just so come to respect his talent even more now as I've got older. And, you know, he created incredible performances that are still like absolutely top of the tree today. And he would have been a wonderful person to interview. I did see him briefly at an event, but never on camera. And somebody else I've come to respect, and you know, I don't really care if people say, "Oh, that's uncool" or whatever, is Bruce Springsteen. And I say that because he was on my bucket list of concerts to go to, because he is 74 now. Yeah, that's right. And as we've been talking, touring is extremely hard work, and he's not going to be here forever. None of us are. And I just felt that I really wanted to see him live because I'd heard so many good things about it. And my husband and I went to Wembley and saw him in concert, and I was totally blown away. Again, somebody that gave 100%, and it was an incredible performance. That's all I can say. And I had the most awesome time. And my husband and I had the songs on all the way home in the car. And it was, you know, I like somebody like that that's been seasoned by life and who has remained true to themselves. And, you know, he's still very caring of all the people around him, his family. And I've got a lot of respect for that. That he's kept his feet on the ground, and I like people like that. I would say Iron Maiden are like that. Iron Maiden have welcomed me back with open arms and have been so supportive and kind to me. I've seen a couple of the band at the Karma Sanctum Hotel when I've been there. And, you know, it's good to surround yourself with good people and to take inspiration from good people. That was probably a longer answer than you intended, but...
No, that's fine. Now, clear your mind, Vanessa. I want you to give me the first answer that pops into your head. What is your favourite album cover?
Oh, God.
There's so many, but what's the first one that you kind of think of?
I'm racking my brains. I'll say the almighty Blood, Fire and Love, because I have the actual original album artwork hanging on my wall. Somehow got hold of that.
That's fine.
It's good, lovely, really good artwork, and also obviously a kind of pivotal time of my life when I met Ricky in the very early days.
That's fine. So you and your husband Nick, you jump in the camper van, you decide to go on an adventure on the road. What bands or songs would I expect to hear on your travel playlist?
Well, that's a good question, because there's a playlist where you're going to be overtaking a lot of people. In a camper van, you don't overtake anybody. In fact, you create a mass of cars behind you because you can't go very fast.
Well, I was going to ask, do you and Nick have the same musical taste?
Ish. Nick has a lot of kind of dance playlists, which I don't like at all. But he likes Nick. I'm very lucky. Nick is very tolerant of me, and you know, he'll always put together playlists for me, and yeah, we'll just, well, what do we listen to? All sorts, really. Probably more of the, I would say, kind of Seattle type rock, less the really, really heavy stuff. that's what I call overtaking music, and you don't overtake anybody in a motorhome. And maybe, some... I came across an artist called Mario Vane recently, and he does a lot of what I call feel-good rock, and every single song on his album is absolutely brilliant. So we like Mario Vane, and I have to say, I've mentioned Those Damn Crows. I think their album coming out in April, God-Shaped Hole, is really, top-notch album. Every song I've heard from it so far is just superb. So yeah, it'll be a mixture of the old classics and some of the new music that I've come to know since I started my channel.
It's funny that you mentioned Those Damn Crows, because if you ever want to know if your channel is succeeding or not, I had never heard of Those Damn Crows prior to you getting them on the podcast. I now play them on my radio show because I just love the music that you introduced me to via your channel.
Oh, well, that's wonderful to know.
So it's really cool. And then last question for yourself, Vanessa. It's early on in 2025. Do you have any concert plans this year? Any concerts that you hope to attend? Yeah,
I do. I would like to go to Download, and I may do some filming there. I need to check with the promoter first. I would like to go and see Guns N' Roses. I think that'd be awesome. I would like to go and see Iron Maiden, actually. It's their 50th anniversary tour, as we know. I'm not, how much longer can they continue? Again, because it's such a high energy show, and I love Eddie. And I've had the privilege of going on stage and singing Heaven Can Wait with Iron Maiden, which was great fun. So I know a lot of people in the Iron Maiden camp, so that would make it even more fun. I want to get out and about to gigs 100% this year, and maybe have a camera crew with me as well.
Just make you jealous. I've already got my Iron Maiden tickets for Glasgow.
Well, you've done well, because they've mostly sold out.
Yeah. So I'll be going to see them. I think it's in June. I think it'll be the 9th or 10th time I've seen them. But I've definitely not been on stage to sing Heaven Can Wait. But I do know the words, because it's the easy part in the middle. But Vanessa, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been a pleasure to speak to you again, and to really hear about Trust in Rock, not just looking at the videos, but your thoughts behind each part of it. Obviously, I do wish you all the continued luck and success with it. It will continue to grow. I know it's going to be a success, and we'll get bigger and better people coming on. And for anybody watching, again, I've said it before, subscribe to the channel on YouTube, follow you on social media. If they want to leave a little comment, always happy to hear what they've got to say, and you'll give them a wee message back as well. But it was good speaking to you again, and until next time, Vanessa, thank you very much.
Oh, well, thank you, Ian, and thank you again for all your support and encouragement. And, you've got a great podcast yourself, and I'm full of admiration for all the fantastic interviews you've done, and you've introduced a lot of new bands as well and given them a platform. So, I tip my hat to you as well.
Cheers, pal. Thank you.
Bye.